Welcome back. You made it to Living Limitless. Play your way to freedom. We are joining with you as you connect, play, and awaken your personal power, your expansiveness. And I'm so excited today to welcome Sandra Possing. If you don't know her already, Sandra is a speaker and mindset coach. She empowers high achieving, sensitive women to unleash their inner badass, develop unshakable self belief, and manifest their dream lives. You can follow her at sandrapossing.com. Sandra, thank you so much for being here. And I'd love to hear in your own words a little bit more about your work and what inspires you to stay in the work.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I love doing stuff like this and just sharing with other seekers my own journey and how to up-level our lives in all the different ways. And part of what inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing is that it's literally the thing that I love the most to do. So it's what I'm most passionate about. It's what feels like my purpose, my mission, the impact that I want to have. And so I feel so much alignment on a daily basis, which helps me feel really alive and awake and free and excited and just like ridiculously stoked all the time. So the work that I do is I was joking with someone the other day. I feel like a little bit of a dinosaur in the industry because I've had this business for 8 years now. And the coaching industry is just exploding and you get lots of new coaches and, seems like every single day. And then here I am, I've been around for what feels like a long time. And while I started out doing kind of general life coaching and was doing that for a long time, the last few years, I've really honed in on mindset and manifestation, because that's where I've seen the most transformational opportunity, I guess you could say, and potential for people. And it's also what I'm most excited about. So really what I do is I help high achievers, mostly women, mostly sensitive, high achieving women. And I also specifically work with people who are very impact driven. So people who care, they want to make the world a better place, whether it's the environment or helping people. They have some sort of a drive to have an impact that's bigger than themselves. And they're also very growth oriented. So I get these like hungry, passionate, ambitious people who want to go out and do something and do great work in the world, but they're constantly getting in their own way. They're blocking themselves. They're struggling with usually perfectionism or people pleasing. Self-doubt is a popular one. Lots of limiting beliefs, fears, a lot of the usual unhelpful tendencies that I tend to see in people. And it's my great joy to kind of teach them how to get back into connection with themselves is a lot of what it feels like. It's helping them get out of their own way and unlock their own potential and then really up level their lives. And it may be that we're specifically working on their career or relationships or a very specific part of their life, but it all comes down to essentially a transformation from the inside out. And so it comes back to mindset. It comes back to how they talk to themselves in their head and to self-love. So their relationship with themselves is kind of the core of it. And then we teach them mindset tools and manifestation tools to take this kind of authenticity and alignment that they find within themselves and then to go and create a life that's an expression of who they are. And it's just so fulfilling because I get to not only play with topics that I love, but I get to watch these people who are amazing humans. And I look at them and I see their potential. I'm such an empath. So I feel their pain and their frustration. And then I get to watch them essentially blossom. It's like I see this bright light come on in their eyes. And as they develop more self-belief and confidence, they kind of become radiant in a really, really beautiful and inspiring way. So, yeah, I mean, even though there's, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, which I will gladly choose any day over other types of challenges, but really at the end of the day, it's so deeply fulfilling and it lights me up like nothing else.
Hmm. Wow, I'm feeling a lot of the theme of tapping into our unlimited nature. And so, how, so when I say the phrase living limitless, what does that mean in your life and how do you bring that forward? Or are you open to saying more about how you bring that forward in your clients' lives?
Absolutely. So I love the word limitless. I think that was one of my words of the year a couple years ago. It's hard to keep track. So many words that I love, but limitless to me is very resonant because it kind of goes against everything that we've been conditioned to think, right? We're so conditioned by our very well-meaning caretakers, parents, the media, our peer groups, just by as a product of being alive in our culture, our society, meaning mostly Western culture, because that's what I'm familiar with.
Mhm.
Europe and I grew up in California. So I've got kind of the US and Europe as my reference points, but we're so conditioned to focus on our limitations. So it's literally the opposite is what you're talking about, and we walk around thinking about all the reasons why we can't have something and why we're not qualified and why we're not good enough. And it's like, well, it's not like we're doing it consciously. We've just been so deeply programmed that we're walking around essentially unconsciously self-sabotaging ourselves all day long. And we think that that's normal. That's just life. That's just reality. And so I see, and it breaks my heart. I see so many people just settle. It's like, well, that's just the conversation in the mainstream is that like, this is as good as it gets. So, just be
Mhm.
thankful for what you have and too bad, and I'm like, but there's so much more. And the more that we start to explore that and entertain, not even believe yet, but just open ourselves up to or entertain the possibilities that we can be, do, and have more, the more we start to see and feel that, oh my gosh, there actually is so much. We all have a ton of potential. We just haven't learned how to tap into it. We don't know how. We don't know how to think properly. We haven't learned how to manage our minds. And our minds, unfortunately, our subconscious minds are running the show.
Mhm.
And so it's usually fears and limiting beliefs and conditioning that's running the show. And then people walk around thinking that their limitations are their reality. And
Yes, I'm hearing that, and it's resonating. The inner critic, the voice of the inner critic is often at the wheel of our lives instead of being in the back seat where the critic belongs, or maybe 3 rows back or 4 rows oh, further back in the running the show. So for you, I know a lot of individuals who are really launching forward and helping others transform their lives and do that mind shift, do that life shift. A lot of individuals who are leaders in this area have a story of a breakdown to break through to get to this. I want to bring this into the world. Other people have a more natural evolution, more of a natural progression, maybe a smoother ride, if you will. Will you share with us a bit of your journey?
yeah, so I would say mine was kind of both and neither at the same time. So I can't pull out just one major breakdown that led to a breakthrough, but I would say I've had such a consistent series of mini breakdowns that have led to mini breakthroughs that
Mhm.
there have been, it's kind of just been this undulating roller coaster ride of breakdown to breakthrough for a long time. Some of the ones that I can pull out, a big part of my struggle in my 20s, I'm 40 now, I turned 40 in the summer of 2020. And a big part of my struggle in my 20s was that I was very much living my life based on how I felt I should live my life. So
Mm.
I was doing all the supposed tos, I was doing all the shoulds, or at least in my mind, I was, constantly looking for who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing right now? What does a normal person in their mid and late 20s even do with themselves? So I was constantly looking outside of myself for validation. I hadn't really learned yet to look within and to trust myself and to be willing to just try things. And so one of my big breakdowns was somewhere around maybe 28, 29. I hadn't decided kind of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it literally, like, if you took a week snapshot of where I was at in that period of my life, it was like Monday, I would get super fired up and be like, you know what? I need to just stop messing around. I need to go to Salesforce or, Twitter and just get like a normal job and just start at the bottom and work my way up, just be an adult. God, like, get it together. Right. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to do that. And the next day, and I was working in fitness at the time, I was an outdoor personal trainer in San Francisco. The next day I'd be like, you know what? No, I'm an entrepreneur. I should start my own business. What am I doing? I'm a free thinker. I got to do my own thing. And then I'd be like, but what's that going to be? I don't have like an expertise or skill. I don't know. And the next day I'd be like, man, I'm an artist. I should move back to LA. Like, I kind of used to want to be an actress. Maybe I should go pursue that. Or like, maybe I should sing or dance. Like, I have these artistic leanings in me and I need to honor that. And I'd get all inspired. And the next day I'd be like, what am I doing? young, I'm like relatively untethered. I should just go travel and take a year off. And the next day I'd be like, you know what, maybe I should go get a master's degree. That would be the responsible thing. Plus there's this really cool one in France called NCAD, and it's like super international, and I'll do that. And then by Saturday, I would be absolutely exhausted because I was so indecisive. I had so much lack of clarity. And I
Mhm.
was just like pulling myself back and forth because I was so driven by the shoulds. And then I would basically like collapse in the shower sobbing and beat myself up for not having figured it out yet. Like I always had the story about you're taking too long or you should be further along. And
Mhm.
it wasn't until one of those types of breakdowns that I kind of had this breakthrough where I was like, you know what? It's okay to be where you are. Just start now and make your job to figure out what your job is, you know, and you don't have to get it right away. Just start exploring, but it has to be something that is really true for you. And what's ironic is all of those things were there were elements of each of those that had some truth to them. But it just took a little bit more soul searching and being patient with myself and compassionate to kind of arrive at a place where I then found essentially personal development and coaching. As once I figured out that was actually a career path, it was like all the lights came on and I went, okay. And then I went to my first coach training class and I felt like I had found home. And that
Mm.
was a huge breakthrough.
That's
And then there have
awesome.
been many breakdowns and breakthroughs since then as well.
Right. Right. I thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that. I think all of us have our society is pretty interesting in regards to I believe this happens in some European countries as well, but asking children when they're, in their early to mid teens, what are you going to do with your life? And what are you going to be? And what are you going to study in college? Um, and there is a lot of pressure there. It's almost like there isn't enough allowance of self-discovery when we're younger, so that, you're in your junior year of high school and you're supposed to have, a path figured out. And it's really interesting. And maybe some people do have that inner calling immediately from youth. But we spend so much of our life kind of being told to be automatons, like go and study this stuff and go and do this, and tests are on this day, and you can only take one sport because there aren't enough hours in the day. And so we just get shifted into these boxes. And I just can so completely relate, as that when I think I was undeclared my freshman year of college, because I was just thought, well, and I saw my very best friend who's very artistic, a very good writer, and she chose biology as her major as a freshman, and took all of the only biology courses. So not even the things that could apply towards other degrees, but just biology. And sure enough, she got a year and a half into it, and then just like the light came on, and she went, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! Why am I studying biology?" Like I've never really been even interested in science. I just got this idea that I would be employable, and this is what my father expected of me. And I just thank you for being vulnerable and just really putting some light on what it is to be in our 20s, and not yet and not really have been given the skills to spend time going within, listening to our own guidance. So thank
Absolutely.
you for that. And I would love to know, since you have been in this field for so long and talking to people who are dealing with life on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, we all are. All of us that are living are experiencing our lives. So what does the word trigger mean to you? And I just would love a great explanation, because everyone kind of interprets it slightly differently. And then when an individual is coming to you and sharing a struggle that exemplifies a trigger, what are some skills or tools that you can give that person?
So trigger is such a great word because I think triggers have a bad reputation, and most of us are inclined to want to either ignore them or kind of like cover them up real quickly. Like, let me just brush this under the rug and then go focus on something else.
Mhm.
I think in the spiritual community, it can be dealt with in kind of an unhelpful way sometimes, which is like, oh, just focus on the positive, and we end up doing this kind of spiritual bypassy thing where like we take some part of our own shadow or maybe some trauma, and we just like ignore it and try to be all, good vibes only and all that kind of stuff, and then we miss out on a massive opportunity to heal something. which leads me to basically my definition of a trigger is just an opportunity to heal something that hasn't been healed in us yet. So you may have something that triggers the crap out of you that for me, when it happens to me or when I hear it, does absolutely nothing, and vice versa, because it's not about the trigger itself. It's about the associations that you have with it. It's because it touches on some sort of a wound, I would say, would be a good analogy. So, if I'm walking down the street and somebody shouts at me and says something, if they shouted at me like, you know, oh my gosh, you're so short, like that would do nothing for me because I'm 5'10". So I like that doesn't mean anything. I'd be like, that's weird that they said that, cool. And I would keep walking, right? It just doesn't mean anything. But if they said something, they shouted something at me that touched on one of my core wounds, like let's say one of my core wounds that I've worked through a lot has just been self-worth stuff, basic self-worth stuff, and not basic, but I say basic because I think all of us have some version of a self-worth thing, or most of us do. So let's say they shouted out something that in a way touched on that core wound, even if they were shouting at somebody else, but I heard it and I assume, oh my gosh, that's about me. And then I make up a bunch of stories about, oh my gosh, they just figured out that I am actually a terrible person or whatever, like random guy on the street, right? So I'm walking down and I'm responding to something that has very little to do with the person or the situation or the circumstance. It just has to do with something in me that hasn't been healed. And so it's actually a massive opportunity. Like I used to think that when we had triggers, not that we should ignore it, but like, oh, this is a problem and we should probably fix it and like hurry up and fix it so you can go back to working and living a great life. Whereas now I'm like, no, no, no. If I notice one of my own triggers, or if I'm working with a client who notices a trigger, we pause and we celebrate. Not like, yay, I'm so glad you're hurting, but more like, yay, I'm so glad this came up and is coming out because now we can deal with it. Because as long as it's living in the shadows, it's just going to continue to run the show from behind the scenes, and you might not even realize why you're feeling upset or whatever it is. So it's like the trigger comes up and we're like, yes, bring it into the light. Let's look at it. Let's shine a flashlight on it. Let's bring in all the, all our resources, and then essentially confront it. But I like to confront our triggers with first with gratitude and celebration, just to be happy that it's actually there. But secondly, not to be like, I'm going to, smash this fear. I feel like that's a very masculine approach to like, I'm going to conquer all my fear and I'm going to be fearless and I'm going to break through all my, and I'm like, maybe also let's have some compassion for ourselves. If I have a trigger, it's probably based on some sort of a wound that was really painful at some time and maybe still is, probably happened in childhood or maybe in young adulthood. And I think that is to be handled with care. So I think we can look at it and be really curious. And we can also just have so much love and compassion for the version of ourselves that initially suffered whatever it was to cause that wound. And then we can have compassion for the version of ourselves that still gets triggered every single time this thing happens. And then we can just kind of do like a pattern interrupt and say, hey, okay, let's get really curious. Now that I'm aware of this thing, what do I need to do to heal it? And healing, of course, can have so many different pathways and modalities. And then we can look at what kind of a healing approach might make sense. Is it therapy? Is it plant medicine? Is it crystals? Is it journaling? Is it meditation? Is it energy work? It can be all sorts of things, but we can't work with it if we don't recognize that it's there. So triggers, awesome. Love them. Bring it on.
Wow, I definitely hear you in regards to the sort of masculine angle or the action angle of, you know, overcome it, shove it under a rug. We can visit it later and later and later, and it keeps happening. Whether it's like a worthiness story is a great example, because I do think that we all have some messaging we received at one point that meant we weren't worth XYZ, whatever that is, money, love, attention, whatever the core piece of it is. But yeah, the concept of celebrating it is really fun. Being grateful that at least you have an awareness, like you're having the awareness. And my challenge is just shortening the window of, instead of going into the reacting from the wounded place, the reacting from that old story, and shifting to the, like, pausing or, being in compassion and not reacting from the wound, getting back in touch with our authenticity and our integrity prior to, shouting at the guy who called out you're stupid from down the street who you're just like, oh gosh, he must know that that's me, and reacting from a more loving place instead of reacting from that wounded
Totally.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once we have that awareness, I think a big part of the work becomes, like you talked about, that pause. And
Mhm.
can I pause long enough to not react defensively? Because if I can pause long enough, there's a Viktor Frankl quote that I love that I'll probably butcher, but it's the one that's like, there's a space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies our power and our freedom or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
it can literally be a fraction of a second, but most of us are so checked out that we don't recognize that we can take a breath and pause and choose something else. But if we can just pause long enough to take a breath, that's enough time to go from our lizard brain to our more conscious thinking brain and go, okay, someone just yelled at me. How do I want to respond to that? I'm just going to take a breath and ignore it and keep walking and send myself some love or whatever it is. And once that wound has, or that trigger has come up to be healed, then we can integrate it. And then it becomes part of our power. Like instead of this thing that's maybe shameful or like
Mhm.
something that about yourself that you want to hide from others, I think the more that we own it, like let's say somebody was physically or sexually abused as a child, right? Like that's and they get triggered easily because of that shame and that wound. Like that's a
Yeah.
huge deal. That's a huge thing. But instead of, quickly trying to heal it privately and let no one else see it, like, what if we just own the heck out of it and then let that become part, like we integrate it into our power. And then that person who has been through a situation like that might be able to help other people who've also been through that, and their mess becomes their message, which is one of my favorite phrases.
Mm. I like that. Your mess becomes your message. I love
Definitely
that.
make that up. I don't know where I got it, but
Right.
to whoever said it first, I don't know.
Yes. Well, they say teach what you feel as though you need the most, which
Totally.
I'm totally in agreement around. And that's kind of where the series title came from. Is I find that personal limitation and rigidness are the things that really am excited to move through and help other people move through. So living in the opposite of rigidity and limitation for me, would be being more playful and living limitless.
Totally.
Yeah. So I love that your mess becomes your message. That's good. So we've talked about some practices that people could in, include in their lives. And I would also love to, if you're open to it, Sandra, I would love to experience anything you would like to demonstrate from your work.
Yeah. So I think the easiest thing would be to go through essentially a simple formula for manifestation, because once you kind of have the basic pieces of it, you can apply it to almost anything. And you start to realize how much power you have to create the results you want in your life and to attract what you desire. So I'd love to give just like, I was thinking I might pick, I think what I'll do is walk through essentially a real life example of one of my clients and a result they were looking to create, and just walk through exactly what we did for each step of the formula and kind of how it ended up, so that you can see like there's these different pieces of manifestation that when you put them all together, it's really, really powerful. Does that work?
Outstanding. Yes, please.
Awesome. So yeah, so a lot of the work I do is around mindset and manifestation. Then of course there's all this other stuff around self-love and self-acceptance and mindfulness and all these different things. But I love to kind of put it into these two buckets because they're the ones that I found to be the most powerful. And of course, mindset and manifestation are very intertwined too, because you can't really do manifestation work without incorporating a lot of mindset. But I love the manifestation stuff because of course we all have desires. We all have goals and dreams, or even if we don't have goals and dreams, we have things that we want, or we have preferences. Like I like this more than this.
Mhm.
And the more I think that most of us start to get into self-development work, the more we start to realize, oh my gosh, I am not just this like passive person in the passenger seat of my life being, whipped around at the mercy of whatever, which is how I think the majority of humans on the planet live, like victim to
Mhm.
our circumstances. I'm just, hope for the best, fingers crossed, like, well, we'll see how it goes. And once we start to do self-development work, I think we start to realize, oh my gosh, I can actually get into the driver's seat of this car and put my hands on the wheel, and I can be in charge. I can't control everything. I'm not the master of the universe, certainly, but I am the master of my own ship. And even when it seems like I have no choice, I still have a lot of choice when it comes to how I respond to things and what I focus on and my thoughts and my
Mhm.
actions. So, wow, I actually do start to have a lot of power. So, as people are realizing that they have more power, then I'm like, let's help you create what you want in your life. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your desires? And so the simplest process that I found, and this is very much based on I have a host of favorite manifestation teachers that I follow. So this isn't necessarily something I made up. This is kind of pieced together from different teachers. And what I will say is manifestation, different teachers will kind of, give you their formulas, and they're all basically the same. They're just broken into steps differently, so
Mhm.
I would say for people who are like, wait, is it the 3-step formula or the 9-step one? I'd be like, don't worry about it. Just put it together in your mind in a way that works for you. But essentially it comes down to the same thing. So I'll go over the steps first and I'll give the example of my client. So the steps in my mind are: number one, to get really, really clear on what you actually want.
Mhm.
And this could be, in general, do a big life vision board, or it could be like a very specific goal around, let's say, career. Number two, you start to do, and I say start to do because it's definitely an ongoing process. You don't just like sit down and do it once and then check the box. Like, no, no, no. Our mindset stuff is so tangled up and so deep. So number two is to start to do the mindset work around believing that you can have what it is that you want. Step
Mm.
number three is to start to do the emotional or energetic work around it, because that also gets very tangled up. And that's where a lot of the power is, because it's all about vibration and frequency. And then number four is to take inspired action. And then number five is to receive and be grateful. And then
Mm.
there's lots more to say about each of those steps. But so, as an example, a client who I was working with recently knew that she wanted a new job. Like, the desire was very clear. She was in a job that she did not like. Her dynamic with her boss was very complicated. It felt toxic. It was an unpleasant situation. Then the pandemic hit. So then it was like she's working from home. She's navigating all this stuff, didn't like the job. So she knew she wants a new job. And we start to get clear on, okay, so that's the main desire. Let's start working through this process. So we start getting clear on, okay, there's the new job, but what, any new job? Do you want to go flip burgers at McDonald's, or do you want to do, so let's get specific. So we just start getting really clear on what's important to her in a new job. Then throughout the process, she gets laid off because of the pandemic. So we're like, okay, thanks, universe. That made it a little bit easier. We've now created some space to do this. And so the first piece of getting clear, we just did a bunch of work around what's important to you in a job. What kind of a work environment do you do? What kind of a role do you want? What is important to you about the company? What do you want in a boss? So we look at just all these different pieces and different aspects of the desire, the goal, the dream. And again, apply this to like a house that you want to buy, a partner that you want to find, a athletic endeavor you want to pursue. You just start getting really curious, and you don't get super attached to the specifics. So like, I think a good example is like, well, I'm going to manifest my soulmate. And then you write a list of 100 qualities of this person, and you get so attached to it that like your soulmate basically comes up and taps you on the shoulder, and you're like, oh, wait, sorry. Oh no, you're missing one of these 100 qualities. Sorry, bye-bye. You miss out on this opportunity. So it's not about getting attached to the details. It's about connecting to the essence and the truth of what it is that you really want. And so we look at the details just to like get an idea and to get really excited and inspired about what the goal and the desire is. So we got really clear on, just different aspects of her ideal job situation. Then we start looking at the mindset work. And the mindset work could be things around believing that it's possible, period, for anyone, believing that it's possible for you specifically, believing that you're worthy of it. For a lot of us, it's the worthiness stuff that gets in the way. And it's also starting to let go of the mindset kind of gunk. Like, if I think of manifestation as this channel, like you are like a radio tower that's communicating with the, limitless resourcefulness of the universe. And there's a lot of things that can get in the way of that clear channel. And one of the things that can get in the way is, we're like sending out this frequency that's like, I want this. And then we're fuzzying up, or we're distorting the signal on the way back by being like, but I'm not worthy of it. Like, I want a new job,
Right.
I'm never going to get it. Right. So we start to work through, okay, what are the limiting beliefs that are in the way? And this particular client recognized she was harboring so much resentment for the ex-boss that like that was taking up a lot of mental bandwidth, and she was just feeling like really kind of low vibration energies and emotions around that. So we did a bunch of forgiveness work.
Mm.
forgiveness work is one of a really beautiful, simple way to start to kind of clean up your mindset piece around it. And then things like affirmations and, training your brain to believe and normalizing the possibility that you can actually have this thing that you want. You can visualize, you can see yourself in the new job, all that. And then you get onto the emotions piece, which is where you get to do whatever you need to do in order to feel the feelings of having it now. And so this client, she starts picturing herself working at this new job. We don't know what it is yet, but she's like picturing herself being excited about her coworkers and having a boss that's super supportive, and she's doing work during the day that's really stimulating, so she's almost like visualizing it and like writing little stories out, but she starts to feel what it would feel like to finish a work day and be like, God, that was amazing. I'm so grateful for this job. So she's essentially getting her vibration into the right place so that she's kind of vibrating on the same frequency as this new job that she wants. And then the fourth piece is taking action. And I think what most of us do in the world is we just pick a goal and then go start taking action. But so much of that action comes from a place of should. And it comes from this very masculine paradigm of just like efforting, like, I'm just going to go and work really hard and I'm going to work my face off until I get the thing, which can work, but it's also exhausting and it leads to burnout. And sometimes you end up getting a thing that's not actually what you really wanted, because you were coming from a should place. So instead, I like to encourage people to take aligned, inspired, messy action, which means sometimes acting before you think you're ready. It means maybe having imposter syndrome and doing it anyway. It means taking action that comes from like an intuitive urge and feeling terrified, but doing it scared. And it also means letting go of perfectionism, which is a big one for at least most of my clients and myself. And then once you're out there taking some action, then you get into this place of trust, of celebration, of receiving, of gratitude. And that can be really freaking hard when you don't have any proof that it's coming yet. So this client, for example, got really clear what she wanted, started doing a bunch of mindset work, did the energetic work, emotional work. And by that, I also mean moving energy. So like if you feel lots of frustrating emotions, there's different things we can do to move that energy work, breath work, dancing, exercising, crying, screaming into a pillow, right? And she was taking lots of action, like updating her resume and networking and applying to jobs and talking to people in that industry, et cetera, et cetera. And then the receiving piece is so tricky because you're sitting there and you're like, I don't actually know if I'm going to get a job. What if I run out of money before I get this new job? What if the pandemic takes away all the jobs in history? It's like, there's so many questions. And the thing there is to sit in this place of trusting that it's coming, trusting that it's already yours, believing that you have it. So you act as if it's already there. So you can do things like you wake up in the morning and you like get dressed for work, even though you're not working yet, but you're training yourself to have the confidence of just having this desire because it's already here in your mind. So you kind of get to play make believe and practice being so incredibly grateful and just celebrating. You're not like walking around telling people that you've gotten a job that you haven't, because it gets a little, you don't want to like lie, but you can drum up the belief within yourself and come to a place of just like, speaking of just play and relaxation, manifestation by far works best when we're not like obsessive or frantic. It works really well to just chill and receive.
I love that last step. And it's interesting. I feel like I've heard it that way before, just that last piece. But the way that you're explaining it, when you've done all of those other steps, you have more of a natural energy around it. Even though I can see how it can be challenging because you're still it's still coming in, it's still on its way to you, and then you're acting as if it's you already are it.
And that's where I think a lot of the work, the hard work, but the most powerful work is for people who are practicing manifestation is, can you get to a place where you can just trust and choose to believe and choose to know it's coming, even though you got no proof and it's not here yet.
Yes, and it does sound kind of playful. If you've done the mindset work, this can be a playful experience.
Totally. And the more
Yeah.
playful it is, the more playful it is. And the more fun you have, the more fun you have. And I would argue the better it works too.
Yes, and so, how do you incorporate play into your life, into your clients' lives?
I think play is incredibly important. And because a lot of my clients come from sort of I'm not going to give myself permission to play type of world that they live in. A lot of them have come from, yeah, like welcome to the club, right? It's like I think that's how so many of us are conditioned. Like, you get out there, you work hard. I'm an immigrant myself, so I think I've tended to attract a lot of immigrants or children of immigrants. And then the classic immigrant mindset there is like, we came to this country and sacrificed for you kids, so you better get out there and work hard and, live the American dream for better or for worse and go to a good school and do all those things. And so people come from this like expectation and pressure and like work, work, work and no play. And they look at play as, A, something for kids, B, something for lazy people who don't want to work, or C, like some luxury that you're going to, save for once you get to retirement or something. I'm like, I don't want to wait till I'm 75 and on some 2-week cruise to play. Like I want to play now and I want to play every day. And what I think a lot of folks don't realize is that play it's like basic self-care.
Mm.
I mean, look at other animals. You look at I think it's otters that I'm picturing of, where they just lay on their back and they literally just like toss a pebble back and forth. Like there's no functional thing to what they're just playing. I think all of us creatures on this planet we're meant to play. It's part of our aliveness. It's part of what keeps us healthy. So I basically prescribe play to my clients as if I was a doctor just prescribing the medicine. I'm like, you must do things that are fun for you. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if it's only 5 minutes a week. You have to find ways to relax and find playfulness. It could be, flirting with a stranger. It could be playing a outdoor frisbee that you love. It could be basically honoring any type of passion. For a lot of my clients, they'll come to me and they're like super serious worky people. And they have this artist that's trapped inside them and they desperately want to paint or sing, but they're like, I don't have time for that. That's a luxury. That's silly. And then I basically demand that they carve out time for it. And it's amazing. It's almost like their whole being just softens and the light comes on and they find suddenly the people that thought they didn't have any time and were super busy, because they're honoring something and that something gives them energy, they suddenly have more time because their battery is charged, because they're taking better care of themselves, because they're giving themselves permission to play. So important. And for me, I've always been huge on play. My husband and I are huge on play. We got married and then we traveled for 10 months, bought a one-way ticket and just went for it, backpacks. And we started a travel blog and it's called Beach Play Grub. So like a little play on the eat, play, eat, what is it? Eat, pray,
Eat,
love.
pray, love, right? Beach, play, grub.
Yeah, so we followed tropical weather is basically beaches. Really into sports. I'm just really into like being weird and dancing. And then we both love food. So like that whole trip was kind of themed around that. But it's helpful to have a partner, of course, who's equally interested in play. And play for us can look like a lot of different things: travel, fitness, just being silly, getting together with friends and playing games, being weird with each other. I'm a huge proponent of all of us finding whatever our own version of weird is. I think that's also like self-care, just allowing yourself to like shake off the seriousness and be authentic and do things that are maybe outside of the norm, and I'd say right now, it's limited given pandemic, but we have like our little quarantine pod of friends that we've been seeing this whole time. And we get together with them and we do a lot of fitness and we do a lot of dancing. We'll have these EDM dance parties till 3 a.m. and just throw down. And I'm like, crawling on all fours like an animal, like on the furniture, just being a total weirdo. And to me, that is feeling free. That is feeling uninhibited and being in a space where it's safe to do that with other people who are also not going to judge you, but just get down on all fours with you and make weird noises. Like that to me is total freedom and total play. Then it feels.
Yes. And it sounds like it really would recharge your battery because you're really letting go. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, this is so much fun. I'm having so much fun. This is so much fun. Oh, so practices. So this is almost sounding like a practice, especially if you're recommending it to your clients. But do you have a morning routine? What practices help you stay in an awakened, expansive, higher vibration state?
Yeah, so I recommend to every single one of my clients who's open to it, which is most of them, to either create a morning ritual, or if for whatever reason mornings don't work with them, just commit to having me time every day. So for some people it's an evening ritual. Some people it's like, well, no matter how busy I am, I'm going to take 20 minutes at lunch to just go and, touch a tree or walk outside or whatever it is. My main thing is just get some time where you connect to yourself and where you're charging your battery, filling your cup, whatever it is that you need to do to feel nourished and grounded and at peace. So for a lot of people, I usually recommend the book The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, because he gives a really simple structure that you can use. So for people who are new to doing a morning routine or morning ritual, it's helpful to have some sort of like a basic structure, and then you can always mix it up. But for most of my clients, it ends up looking like some combination of meditation or other mindfulness practices or breath work, some sort of reading to inspire them, some sort of writing, like journaling to just get their thoughts out, often some type of movement, either dancing or like jumping on a trampoline or exercise, possibly some sort of spiritual connection. Maybe they're going to pray, maybe they're going to, just go within for whatever it is. Visualization, affirmations, like anything that connects you to you and that connects you to your dreams and the life you want to create, for me is all good. My personal ones, because I am a fitness person, is usually at least one, if not two, big exercise chunks of my day. That's probably the thing that has me feel the most energized most consistently. So, and I'm a CrossFit running, yoga, dance person. So I'll do something every day to just keep kind of my energy flowing in my body. And then I'm a huge inspiration person. So what that looks like for me is I won't just sit down and read a couple pages of a book. I'm almost always listening to Audible or to podcasts on my phone when I'm walking, driving, running, doing dishes, folding laundry. So, and like 99% of what I listen to is all self-development stuff.
Yeah.
And I call that positivity brainwashing, because it's just like constantly flooding my brain with inspiration, education, and empowerment, because our brains are flooded by negativity, judgment, blame, all that stuff the rest of the day. So we may as well just balance it out a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's
Yes.
what's most helpful to me. And visualizing. I try to visualize a lot too, because that's, I would say, one of the kind of fastest shortcuts and most potent ways to get into a kind of a magnetic state to
Mhm.
manifest.
Yes, I love that visualizing. And inspiration too. So I keep finding so many beautiful new podcasts. And then I just am looking at the list of all the podcasts episodes I want to listen to and thinking, I kind of wish it was the Matrix where I could just go just plug that, just get to listen to the story in like 2 minutes. Because there's so many beautiful, beautiful, inspiring stories to follow right now. And so many individuals that are tapping into higher frequencies and positivity and just living a more intentional life instead of a reactionary life.
And my hack for that is I'm a big fan of using technology when it's helpful and doing it in an intentional way. And one of the ways that I get through a lot of content is I just don't listen to anything at normal speed. On Audible, I'm at like
Yeah.
2x, 2.5x usually. And
Wow.
depending on the platform, sometimes they let you go to, some version of that. I have a Chrome extension plugin for anyone who wants to listen to videos faster. Like I listen to tons of videos from my coaches and my teachers, and I can't even listen to like a YouTube at normal speed. I just bump it up. And so you install this plugin and you can bump the video up to basically any speed you want where it's still coherent. And it's really helpful. You
That is
just
quite a hack.
content. I love it.
That is that is quite a hack. Wow. I do typically talk really fast, but yeah, that listening to people fast also sounds like fun. So, for people to be able to connect with you, what is a great way? Let's share with us a perk or a gift that you would like to share with our audience members so that they can find you, so they can connect with you and experience some of your work.
Yes. So the gift that I would like to offer to everyone is a little PDF that captures my essentially 10 top mindset tips. I like for things to be very straightforward. So they're like my top 10 no BS mindset tips on how to unleash your inner badass. That's a phrase I've been throwing around for a long time, because I think so much of this work really is from the inside out. And I do believe that we all have some version of an inner badass, like this inner strength, inner potential, that no matter where we are on our self-development journey, there's so much more that's available to us if we just do some simple mindset shifts and like intentional things around how we think and how we show up in our lives every day. And so these are my top 10 favorite tips. I think we'll share the link in all the places, and you can download that. And you can also find me on my website, sandrapossing.com. And also my handle is literally the same. It's just my name on every platform. So any social media place, if you search for my name, you'll probably find me there. And I'm kind of equally active on all of them. So I invite people to connect however they'd like.
Outstanding. And I know that there is an audience member, a viewer, a listener right now whose life would completely transform should they be courageous and reach out to you and work with you. What would you like to say to that person?
I would like to say to them to know that you matter, and know that your voice matters, and know that you speaking your truth matters, and you living a life that is extraordinary and that is an expression of who you are is actually totally possible. And it's important. It's important for you, for your own health and wellness and happiness, but it's also important for the collective. I really believe that, and this is a throw out or shout out to, oh my gosh, who's the quote by? I'm blanking on the name, but the quote is something like, the world needs people who have come alive. And one of the ways I think that we can really make an impact on the collective to raise our collective consciousness is to work on ourselves, to heal our wounds, and to raise our own consciousness, raise our own vibration. And so much of that comes from transformation from the inside out, which comes from knowing who you are and showing up authentically and living in alignment with that, which all comes back to like giving yourself permission to focus on you and to focus on your relationship with yourself. And you matter.
Thank you, Sandra. And thank you, Sandra, for being here. Thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, your tools, your practices. I feel as though if someone listens to just this interview and this entire series, they're really going to have have some new tools in their toolbox. So thank you very much for being here.
It was my absolute pleasure. Had a blast and a really fun time doing it. So thanks for having me.
Yes, I can tell your energy is just very supportive and just very accepting and just I'm really enjoying your energy around your work. Thank you.
Thank you. My whole intention with my energy is always to just be fierce love, because that's one of the main things I'm intending to be and always put out there in the world. So it's fun to hear when it has an impact.
Yes, I love that. Sandra, fierce love, Possing. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, audience members, for being here, for listening, for watching. You have been a part of Living Limitless, Play Your Way to Freedom. I'm Andrea Luzon. We will see you next time.